everybody, the students. Are recording the right thing? So you're in the American Politics class, right? Can you sign in? Can you sign into the American Politics class? You signed in already? So it doesn't say you're here. Huh? Just to check to make sure this is working. Okay, so yeah, it's working. Good. Thank you, Ernie.
What's it like to learn math on Brilliant.org? Brilliant gets you hands-on to help you learn by doing. Learn topics from everyday math to calculus and beyond.
Staff, which is made up mostly of trusted policy and political advisors called special. Hi, I'm Craig, and this is Crash Course Government and Politics, and today we're going to talk about government. I know what you're thinking. Craig, we've been talking about government for 13 weeks. To that I say, you got me. But let's talk about actual governing. In particular, the executive branch tools and strategies that the president uses to try to get things done. I mean, the president's just one person for now. Who knows what sort of animal-human hybrid will be president in the future. But there's a lot of presidenting to be done in the United States. So we usually just talk about the president as if he's the entire executive branch, but obviously there's more to it than that. Technically, the entire federal bureaucracy is part of the executive branch, but it's really big and complicated. For today, let's just look at the top levels, the big wigs, the Hank Greens, the head honchos, the ones that deal most directly with the president. Hank Green doesn't work for the government. At the top of the organizational pyramid is the president, of course, and I suppose just below him is the vice president, ready to break a tie in the Senate, or step in if the president dies, or go to a shopping mall opening on behalf of the president. To paraphrase Truman's desk, the buck stops with the president, meaning he has the ultimate decision in important matters and therefore takes the blame when they go wrong. George W. Bush once called himself the decider, and there's a lot of truth to that description. But
okay, hi everyone. All right, so let's continue on with our American Government Politics class. So the my first responses to your papers that I received is that some of you seem to be more familiar with academic citation format style requirements than some others. And so it might be good to do a little bit, cover a little bit of that topic. And so we've been talking about it in the class as I respond to your paragraphs, reminding you that any information that you get from another source, you need to cite the source of that information. And I should tell you that technically, in academic scholarly citation style convention, you only need to provide the page number of the source where that specific information is located if you're quoting text. However, I ask students always to provide the page number in that source where the information is located, even if they put it in their own words, which you should. That's why I ask that no more than 10% of any paragraph or midterm paper or final paper should be direct quotes, because you learn much, much more if you have to think about that information and put it into your own words, right? And typically in academic style citation convention, you have to cite the source of that information, you know, and what you do, well, let me show you what you do. You put at the end of the sentence in which you use that information in your sentence that you write, and you use that information from that source, you put the reference to that source at the end of the sentence in parentheses. Now, I know a lot of you already know this, right? But just to show you that this is a topic that we have to cover in all university classes, that there are different citation styles, and let me make this a little bigger so you can see it. You can see that there is the different styles produced by different academic organizations. The MLA is the Professional Association of the English Professors, Modern Language Association. And then there's the American Psychological Association, you know, psychology begins with a P, so the APA style. And then there's the Chicago Manual of Style, CMS. And so I'm most familiar with the CMS style because I use that a lot, because one of my publishers that publishes my articles, they use the Chicago Manual of Style. So you put at the end of the sentence in which you use information, the last name of the author of the source, so Sabato O'Connor, and the year. So that book was published in 2018, I believe, our textbook. And then at the bottom of the paper, you have references, and you put Sabato, Larry, and Karen O'Connor, politics, American politics, and then you provide the year it's published, and you provide the publisher, and that we use the last name Sabato, right, at the in-text citation to find the source in the reference list with the complete bibliographic information. Now, I'm not very strict about what source you want, what kind of citation style you want to use, but some of you, for example, mix up the citation style. So somebody's mixing up the MLA style and the APA style, and the reason it's an issue is because it's using up more words than you need to do the citation sources when you have to meet that 500 word limit, that 500 word limitation in the size of the midterm paper. But here are examples of these citation styles, and you can see this is a PDF file taken from some university library website that wants to make a short listing of all the different files, all the different citation styles, and how do you cite books versus how do you cite journal articles versus how do you cite newspapers, how do you cite YouTube videos, how do you cite all the different types of sources of information, because anytime you use information from another source, you have to cite the source in scholarly writing. And it's necessary not only because you don't want to claim credit for work that's not yours, which is plagiarism, right? Claiming grade credit for work that somebody else created, but claiming that you created it or that I created it, but also because you want to show how your own new idea that you're developing and showing in your midterm paper builds upon already published official scholarly peer-reviewed knowledge. So it's more likely to persuade me, the scholarly reader, that your truth claim, your insight, is in fact valid, is in fact true. Because the purpose of all communication is to persuade. The purpose of all communication is to persuade. So you have to understand your audience. And in scholarly writing, your audience is other scholars. And they expect you to provide evidence to try to persuade them that your truth claim is in fact a valid truth claim. Without using and citing specific information from scholarly peer-reviewed sources, it's just opinions. And everybody has opinions. Opinions don't mean much, right? So, of course, the most convenient and easy source of scholarly peer-reviewed information is your course textbook. That's a scholarly peer-reviewed book. That goes through the publication process. It's got to be evaluated by other professors as being useful and insightful, including also by the publisher itself, the company, which has lots of people working for it who are academics as well. And the information in the reading is information you should use to support your truth claim in your midterm paper or in your paragraphs as well. And so this notion of scholarly peer-reviewed information is different from information that you find on the internet, because internet website information is not considered scholarly peer-reviewed because anybody, including some 15-year-old person in somewhere with a computer, can post anything on the internet. Anybody can post anything on the internet. So if you find it on the internet, that doesn't mean that it's scholarly or peer-reviewed. I think I mentioned here, right? Sorry, Anis, for repeating this point, but I don't know if I said it, and I didn't say it probably last class because we met on Wednesday last week, but like on Thursday, I had to send out 2 papers that I wrote that I hope to get published. So I sent them to a journal that has a publisher, I should say, that has previously published my work. So I think they might kind of like my ideas and my work. They like the theoretical framework that I use. And they're now going to take my name off of my 2 papers, and they're going to send those 2 papers to 4 other professors. 1 paper to 2 professors, another paper to another 2 professors. And I will not know who they are, and they do not know who I am. They don't know my name, and I don't know who they are. It's called a double-blind, I'm blind, they're blind, peer review process. And they're going to respond to the paper, and they're going to be very harsh because it's anonymous. They don't know, I don't know them, and they don't have to tell me who they are. They won't tell me who they are. So, and we talk about this in the methodology class. There's much conflict and controversy in social science about different theoretical frameworks. So sometimes these people are quite nasty. You know, when you, like I told you, you have to write papers, I have to write papers. I've got to get my papers published if I want to keep this job. Right? And if I write papers and I don't get any published because the peer reviewers say, I'm in trouble. So, we typically, the kind of people that go into this kind of work that we do here in this class, we invest our identities in our jobs. We invest our identities into our work. So it's pretty difficult kind of work to go into insofar as basically you have to learn not to be very sensitive. Because if somebody says that your ideas that you think are keys to unlocking current topics, current issues, to resolving conflicts for peace, or liberating oppressed groups that have suffered so much because of oppression by the majority or so on, that somebody says your ideas are bad. And I don't even know who you are. And it's very emotional. That's what I'm saying. And, but again, you have to try to persuade your reader by showing how your ideas build upon previously published scholarly peer-reviewed findings, research. That means the textbook, that means journal articles. And one place to go to find these kinds of literature, to find these kinds of work is, well, your library databases. I tried to open up the Catholic University of Korea library database an hour ago, and it didn't work. I don't know if I really want to. Well, let me try one more time just to show you what these library journal article databases look like. And you know, the library of your university, where you're from, or here at Catholic University of Korea, has to pay money, a subscription fee every year to access these databases. So let me see what happens here. And by the way, that's probably a good idea. Also remind you to do the cyber campus attendance here. So let's do that now as well. CUK.bc.kr. And here, no, that's not what I want. One more time, go here, Chrome, www.cuk.bc.kr. Okay, so then we go to English, and we go to Cyber Campus, and we go to Introduction to American Political Institutions, we go to Attendance, we go to, here we still are in week 7, and your smart attendance number is 590. 590 is your smart attendance number. So we go 590. Here, what's it doing? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Let me get that. Hold a second here. I wanted to chat. 590. Okay, 590, put that here, like that. Okay, so 590 is your smart attendance number. And, okay, so then, but let's go back to the, I'll let that run, and then open up another Catholic University of Korea, go to Trinity, look here. Let's see if the library databases is working, but I don't want to make too big of a deal out of this because you can go to Google Scholar and look at those sources as well. But see, there's something up here. It's not working. So, okay, we'll just go to Google Scholar. Another place to go for the scholarly peer-reviewed sources is you go to Google and you go to, not Google. Make sure you can share the screen. So we go to screen share, go to here, and then you type in Scholar. And here's Google Scholar, and there you see Google Scholar. And so you can do keyword searches. Everything that comes up here, the Google search engine has been preset so that it only selects for articles or books, articles and books that have gone through the scholarly peer review process and have been posted somewhere on the internet. And so if you're doing research on the midterm topic, which is focusing on whether or not American political institutions are obsolete, you might go COVID-19, pandemic. You don't have to put in and, it uses, all of these are keyword searches. All of these words that you type in, they will automatically look and try to find all of them in the sources that you highlight. American Constitution, Donald Trump, and what happens if we put in obsolete? And put constitutional amendment. How about also electoral college? Because I wrote that on one of your papers that, you know, one of the arguments made in terms of reforming the American Constitution is to try to get rid of the electoral college so that the president is directly elected by a majority of the popular vote, the way the French president is elected. Like Emmanuel Macron is now running against Marine Le Pen, and there's not an electoral college in France. Marine Le Pen or Emmanuel Macron will win if one gets more individual millions of votes more than the other. That's not the way the American system works. The American system is based upon the electoral college, which means there are 50 different presidential elections, one election each of the American states, which explains why Donald Trump became president, even though Hillary Clinton got almost 3 million more individual votes than he did, he still won the Electoral College. So I typed in all of those words, just a lot of words, and I still got 1,600 results here. And you can see this looks like it's the Electoral College Time for Change. And it's from the Fordham University, I think is in New York City. It's a good law school. The Electoral College Time for Change. And so let's see if we have to buy this one or if it's available. Oh, no, you have to log in and they're going to make you buy it. Oh, yes, 30 bucks. So that's, if you look at library database that your college libraries at Catholic University or your university back in Europe is located, you don't have to pay for those articles because the university already paid a subscription fee, annual subscription fee, typically involving thousands of dollars for each of those databases. So, but there are, of course, lots of other articles referenced here. You can see, of course, since this book has just come out, it's already cited by 278 people. Wow, it's 278 other works published on scholarly databases have cited and used and cited information from this book. Two other sources published available as peer-reviewed works. Two other publications have already cited this article. He's cited by 2, cited by 278, cited by 5. So we click here. Let's see what comes up here. And as I showed you, you can see here's the book, and of course they're not going to give you the whole book. They're just going to show you what's available, and if you like it, you should buy the book, hooray! Or ask your library to buy it. But of course, if you ask your library to buy it, it's going to take some time for the library to get it. But you can still do searches within the book. Let's look at Electoral College. And see, I do this a lot because I don't. So he says on page 90, 89, Electoral College, on 89, 88, 84, 12, Electoral College. I do that a lot, looking for information from books that I don't want to buy because I can't buy all the books I need, and not to mention read them. So let me go back here to let's see if we can find an article. This is a well-known publisher, Taylor and Francis, cited by 5 already. America's COVID-19 pre-existing vulnerability, government amend not law. So click here, and let's see, again, can I download this? Oh, this one is available. It's a PDF file. And I think it's available. I think I don't have to buy it. Maybe because it knows I'm accessing this article from a university. So since they know it's from a university, they're not going to charge me. Let's see, is the whole thing available? Yes, the entire article is available. I don't have to pay for it. So there you see. Google Scholar is a nice, convenient, free source of scholarly peer-reviewed information. And there you can see footnotes. We've been talking about citations, footnotes. There you can see there are always footnote formats here. Look how many footnotes this article has. It has 67 footnotes. References to previously published scholarly peer-reviewed information to support its points, to try to persuade the reader that what this article is claiming is, in fact, should be considered social science knowledge. And so that's an example of looking for scholarly research, scholarly material. COVID-19 pandemic and federalism, who decides? But again, this one looks like you have to pay for it, cited by 28 people. So that's what college professors do. We try to get published and we end up citing each other because we try to show that, oh, you see my bright idea, it has all this support from these other sources that have been published, see? So please accept my bright idea as also being useful. Okay, so then let's go back to the lesson plan, and we can have it here, and we'll go here. Yes, I already opened it. Yeah, so there are lots of course, websites available. This is one. Purdue University is a state university in the state of Indiana that has lots of information about citation styles and that you might find useful, although there's a lot of information here, so sometimes it's too much. But if you want all of the information about formatting and style guide, and keep in mind, anytime you copy information, copy text, you have to put quotation marks and cite the source. You have to do that, and if you get caught, if we're not doing it, you're in trouble, right? And that's called plagiarism, which I think is Latin brainchild stealing. And if you get busted for plagiarism, it can end your career. Not so much in the United States, but like in Europe and in the Middle East, if you have a PhD, it adds to your political charisma. So every once in a while, German politicians get in trouble because they found out that so-and-so wrote their dissertation when they were in college, and somebody checked the dissertation 10, 20 years later, and oops, that person copied something from another source and didn't cite the source, didn't put in quotation marks, and got credit for that dissertation, and it ends up ending their political career. And it didn't just happen to people that write and publish articles. It happened to Joe Biden. Joe Biden is an old person. He's 79 years old. He ran for president in the early 1980s. And here's him giving a speech when he was first running for president for the first time 40 years ago. And it's not that quiet. Every time there's always something an issue here. So let me go like this. And see if I can do this without too much pain here.
While at Syracuse Law School, Biden was involved in a plagiarism incident. He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation. While at Syracuse Law School, Biden was involved in a plagiarism incident. He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation. He was given an F, but appealed to the faculty and allowed to repeat the course. He got a B. This comes in the middle of another controversy about plagiarism in Biden's campaign speeches. Today, he dismissed charges that he routinely adopts phrases from other politicians' speeches, called it much ado about nothing. Essentially, Biden said, everyone does it.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
But to the political community in Washington, it all seems of a piece. Plagiarism at law school, plagiarism on the stump, for example.
But this standard is not a measure of how we can evaluate the condition of our society. It cannot measure the health of our children, the quality of our education, the joy of their play.
This is how it sounded when Robert Kennedy said those words in 1968.
Yet the gross national product does not allow for the health of our children, the quality of their education, or the joy of their play.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit. He has also quoted or paraphrased John Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, all without credit.
That our generation of Americans will pay any price, bear any burden, accept any challenge, and meet any hardship.
President John Kennedy's inaugural, 1961. Biden's critics say he sells himself as a man whose words and visions can inspire a new generation in politics. But if the thoughts, phrases, and visions really belong to others, it's a form of false advertising. Robert Kennedy's friend and speechwriter.
If what he did was to present Robert Kennedy's thoughts and statements and speeches as his own, then of course it's counterfeit.
So, of course, that didn't end Joe Biden's career, and he would run again for president and be totally defeated.
The imperialist wars of aggression started by Japan led to a great many casualties in Asia and beyond.
Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course U.S. History, and today we're going to...
Sorry. He then ran again for president, was utterly defeated, and then Barack Obama chose him to be his vice president in 2008 presidential campaign, and he won with Barack Obama, and then did not run in 2016. Hillary Clinton was nominated. He chose not to run for different reasons, various reasons. Hillary Clinton lost, and then he again ran in 2020 and won. So that's important to keep in mind, that you want to avoid. We want to avoid making mistakes that tarnish our reputations. Few people are as lucky as Joe Biden. Okay, so back to the material for today's class. And so I thought what we would do is we would tie up some loose ends in terms of more exercises to illustrate the, there's other plagiarism cases here, but I don't want to spend time on that right now. But so Marine Le Pen accused of plagiarism ahead of an election. This must be from 5 or 6 years ago. But again, maybe it will be a close election in France, but we'll see. So let's go back to the mechanics of the U.S. government to cover that process by which the American president has become the most powerful, by far the most powerful political actor in the United States, far more powerful than the framers of the U.S. Constitution predicted. And the role of the U.S. president perhaps is most clearly evident in the preparation of the massive U.S. budget, government budget deficit, U.S. government budget for the year. So the U.S. government federal budget, not of course counting the state budgets and the local budgets, because these thousands of local governments, the city councils, the county commissions that we've covered, they also have budgets, and they also can raise taxes on people to pay for programs. But just the federal government budget is, I think, almost $6 trillion, $6,000 billion. And the U.S. Federal budget spends hundreds of billions of dollars more than it takes in the form of taxes. So how does it cover the difference between what it spends and what it receives? Do you have any suggestion how a government, whether it be Switzerland or the United States or France, what do they do if they spend more money than they receive in the form of taxes? They borrow, yeah, right. They borrow. They borrow money from international and national lenders by selling bonds. But and we'll come back to that later, but the process of making the budget for the U.S. federal government to cover everything from military expenditures to space program to agricultural programs to Social Security, America's old age pension system, Medicare, the system that we have for providing for medical care for old people. All of this is addressed through the U.S. federal government budget. And so making this budget and deciding what money is going to be spent on what programs, how much money is going to be spent on what programs, this is really 80% of what the U.S. government is focused on, and it is at least the overwhelming majority of what the U.S. government is focused on. And the budget process illustrates the powerful role of the U.S. president, because the U.S. president cannot just simply decide what the budget will be. The U.S. president has to ask the Congress to approve the money to be spent on different programs, as well as propose new programs, propose abolishing old programs, propose changing and amending existing programs. And the office that begins this process is the president. The president submits a budget proposal to the U.S. federal government that's thousands and thousands of pages long, which begins the process of attempting to decide on a U.S. federal budget. And the Congress amends, changes, adds, subtracts to that budget. But the point is that the U.S. president begins the process. And any of you know, if you've done any work in in any kind of student government or any kind of community organization, that if you prepare the agenda for a meeting, or you prepare a budget, a proposed budget for a community club or organization, you do most of the work. You do most of the research, you do most of the analysis of what needs to be done, and people who approve or amend or reject your budget, they react to you. And the US president has, particularly in the 20th century, over the last 120 years, has become the lead actor in creating and explaining and demanding and reforming the US government, as the US government has ballooned and vastly expanded in size as the US economy became a modern industrialized economy and then a global power, first in particularly with World War I and then World War II and then the Cold War into the present. And of course, this was a task which the people that wrote the US Constitution 240 years ago, they did not foresee the US president playing that role. The US president was, in their view, and we know this because how first US presidents acted, the first US presidents acted like elected kings. They acted like the King of Britain acted, except that the King of Britain was not elected through the Electoral College. The US president was not going to be a king, was not going to be inherited, but was going to be chosen through the Electoral College. And George Washington, when he was the first president, he acted like the commander-in-chief, like kings did in Europe at that time. I think George II of United Kingdom, the father of George III, the king when the United States fought their war of independence from Britain, he was the last British king who actually went into battle. When his military was called into service to go fight in Europe, he actually went and led that military. So there was that expectation that during wartime, a king would actually go into the field with the soldiers and fight as the top military leader. And George Washington actually did that. There was a rebellion, the Whiskey Rebellion in what is today Western Pennsylvania, and to put down that rebellion against farmers who were distilling their corn, you know, because corn was a crop that to save it, to make it into something that you could store, you could distill it into alcohol, whiskey. And there was a rebellion against the federal government charging a tax, putting a tax on these farmers' whiskey. And it was called the Whiskey Rebellion. And he actually got on a horse and went out there with the military to threaten to use force to put down the rebellion. But his job was more to preside. The president, word president is a noun, comes from or relates to the verb to preside. So when I preside over a meeting, right, it's like you guys are all fighting with each other and you respect me enough that you allow me to mediate your debates and conflict with each other so that we can decide what we're going to do. But I'm not supposed to be the one that takes the lead in making you do things. And that was the case for the first several US presidents. And it began to change with Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was Donald Trump's hero. Andrew Jackson was the last US president to be born under the British crown when the United States was still a colony of Great Britain. And he was a war hero. And in the Second War, the Americans fought against the British, the War of 1812. And the US government began to act in the 1820s and 1830s to expand the US territory, sometimes in very brutal ways, like, for example, pushing out the Indian tribes in the Trail of Tears, but also to begin to build infrastructure. This is before railroads became the dominant form of conception of what kind of interstate commerce, interstate infrastructure should be constructed to ship goods across the country. The focus was on building canals. waterways, like artificial rivers, because rivers had played such an important role in establishing and expanding the United States, because there's lots of water and lots of rivers, big rivers that you can ship on and travel on to get to where you want to go. And so Andrew Jackson began the process of attempting to get the federal government to promote the building of canals. So if you go to the United States, you'll still see those canals. They've become parks. They're not really used for shipping. They're just real estate now, because very soon in the 1830s, canals were replaced with railroads, and the first railroads were built in the 1830s in the United States. But of course, the modern U.S. economy required extensive U.S. government monitoring, and when there were problems or weaknesses, the U.S. government, including the Congress, would pass laws to address those problems and those weaknesses, and the president was supposed to execute the laws of the U.S. government as passed by the legislature, the U.S. Congress. And so obviously the executive branch that executes the laws, that implements the laws, they are the branch of government that is most deeply, by far, involved in American society. Those thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of people who work for all of those executive branch agencies that we covered in the previous exercise, they have their, how would you say, they have their fingers on the pulse of America. They know how well or not well these policies are being effective or not, how they're being implemented, what can be done to improve them, what are the new problems that are emerging, like we covered last class, ghost guns. And so, not surprisingly, very soon the executive branch would overwhelm the legislative branch in terms of the expertise and knowledge that it has regarding the problems and challenges and issues confronting American society. And the US Congress will react to the executive branch's budget proposals, which are the formal proposal of what the problem is, what needs to be done to fix the problem, and how much money is necessary. So creating the budget, that's a really important part of the US government function, and really illustrates the power of the US president. So let's do an exercise in creating the budget. So here we see, let me send this to you. Here, and so let me go to here, we go U.S. government, and we go, make this a little bigger so you can see what I'm doing here. And hold down. Creating the budget. So let me put that there and ask you to please open up this file. And let me open up from my drive here. And creating the budget. And again, then we have to fix this so we can see it, view. And we go like this, and we go close this. Okay, so here you see a picture of Barack Obama. Creating the federal budget is no easy task, this exercise says. A budget is a plan. Well, make sure you can see that. Let me go back to share screen. Creating the budget, federal budget is no easy task. A budget is a plan for receiving and spending money. The federal budget is the U.S. Government's plan for managing revenue and spending. Our government has a lot of revenue and a lot of spending to keep track of. So it takes hard work and more than a year to create the federal budget. The ultimate goal is for the president and the Congress to work together to make it happen. Sometimes they don't succeed, in which case the Congress will pass a continuing budget resolution to just continue the budget that was approved the previous year, the same kind of budget for the next year, but there has been more efforts after the experience of disagreement to agree on a budget and have it passed by the US government. And as I said, the last budget I think that was passed was $5.8 trillion, which is, and the total US economy, I think, is over $22 trillion. So it's a significant portion of the US economy is controlled by the US government. In total, if you add the state budgets and local budgets, government budgets, the state government budgets and the local government budgets, the US authorities, governments, state authorities control about 1/3 of the gross national product of the US economy, about 1/3. But it's more in other countries. I think in France, it's like 50%. But South Korea is more like the United States. So just to go through this, step one, the president's proposal. Every year, it says here, on the first Monday in February, so this very recent here, the president must deliver his budget proposal for taxing and spending to Congress for the upcoming year. He has help from the Office of Management and Budget, which spends a lot of time writing and collecting documents that help support each budgetary decision. So this Office of Management and Budget works directly for the president, and it employs thousands of people. Like I told you, 120 years ago, when William McKinley was president, he had 11 people that worked for him. 11. Now, thousands and thousands and thousands of people work directly for the US president, including many people in the Office of Management and Budget. Step two, the House it should be the House of Representatives and Senate each develop budget resolutions. They are rough drafts of the budget based on the president's proposal. So they react against him, they add to it. They also reuse the previous year's budget, which you can imagine is very important, right? So that you don't have to redo everything. I would bet that maybe 90% of the federal budget in US or the national budget in France or Germany or Switzerland basically just draws from the previous year's budget and modifies it slightly, right? And new programming requests as well. And of course, with the COVID-19 pandemic, these new program requests have become more of a topic of focus in dealing with the worst world public health crisis since the Spanish flu over 100 years ago. Step three, next, selected members of the House and Senate come together in what is called a conference committee. Members of the conference committee take each House budget's resolutions and create one joint resolution. So keep in mind, the US president does not control the Congress the way the British Prime Minister controls the House of Commons. The House of Lords is minor, important but minor player, the House of Commons. So the House of Commons does what the British Prime Minister tells it to do, unless the British Prime Minister doesn't want to tell them what to do. And so things have become more complicated under Boris Johnson and Brexit. But typically, the US Congress in its two houses, the Senate and the House, play a much more important role in making the details of US government policy and the budget than the House of Commons members play. The House of Commons, basically, it's supposed to provide information and rubber stamp what the British government in number 10 Downing Street, led by the Prime Minister and his or her cabinet, decide to do. But the US Congress, they are autonomous in the sense that their jobs do not directly depend upon whether or not Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Barack Obama like them or not. I mean, it's a big deal if you make an enemy of the president, if the president views you as an adversary, but the Prime Minister of Britain is the Prime Minister because the Prime Minister controls a majority of the votes in the House of Commons, which means if the British Prime Minister tells you what to do as a member of his or her party, you better do it. Otherwise, you might say, no, I'm going to become an independent. Fine. Most House of Commons members who reject the leadership of their party, they end up ending their political careers. It happens, and then they become independent, and then they disappear in the British system. That's not the way the US Congress reacts to the US president, because the US president does not, is elected separately through the Electoral College to become the president. He's not elected through the Congress. So that means that, what does this mean? It means that the US legislature is playing an important role, more important role in making policy in its details for this $5.8 trillion budget than in, say, the House of Commons, that the US legislature is actually playing an autonomous role, and Congress people who join the Congress as members of the House of Representatives and members of the Senate, they become policy experts in particular fields or policy areas that they think are most important to their constituents, the people that elect them back home in Oklahoma or Ohio or California or Texas or Florida, in their district in Ohio or their district in Texas or their congressional district in Florida. So if you are representing an area focused heavily on agriculture and supplying and growing wheat and corn and cattle, beef to the US and the world market, you will probably be on the Agricultural Committee. You want to be on the Agricultural Committee in the House of Representatives, because that committee does 90% of the work for the Congress on agricultural issues. Even though they respond to the Department of Education under the executive branch, still the congressmen are going to try to shape that policy proposal from the Department of Agriculture in a way that will make his or her farmers, ranchers, constituents back home in Iowa, that's farm area, happy. And that means you need to know the details of their problems, the details of what they need, the details of what they are getting already, what kind of relationship they have to Department of Agricultural policy, and so on. And so the US Congress is a working legislature. It is significant, and most of the work, most of the detailed work of making government policy happens in those committees. And the speeches that you see on television in the full House of Representative building where they meet, in the big chamber where they meet, that is for political speech making and justification and appeals. But the hard, detailed, tedious work of making government policy from the perspective of the US Congress happens in those committees. And the reason I mention this, because we have so many students in the class who are from Europe, is that when the European Union was creating its European Union institutions, what are called the European Union institutions today, that they had to choose models for around the world to look to in order to conceive and develop their own models for the European Union, including the European Parliament. So the European Parliament does not directly control the Commission of the European Union, and the Commission of the European Union does not directly control the European Parliament. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, former German defense minister, she cannot tell the European Parliament members, a majority of them, how to vote on policy issues. So in setting up the European Union institutions, the European Parliament is elected directly by the people, the way the US Congress is directly elected by the people, and the European Commission is elected separately through a choice of the European Union member states that then can vote up or down as a whole on the entire European Commission. And, the Ursula von der Leyen stays as president of the European Commission until her 5-year term is up. She cannot be removed short of a crisis, like an impeachment because of some serious shortcoming, which has been threatened in the past, 20 years ago, over 25 years ago. But that's a topic for a European politics class. But the point is that the European Parliament is a working legislature, that they do real work because they, in part because they are not directly controlled by the executive of the European Union, the European Commission, and so the US Congress is similar in that sense. So if you want a career in the United States Congress, you have to choose a committee to be on, more than one committee, typically, and you want to become an expert, a policy expert in that policy area. If you are representing an area that's focused on international finance and banking, like for example, New York City, you will probably want to be on the finance committee of the US Congress, because so many of your businesses and so many of your constituents, their jobs, their livelihoods depend upon the well-being of the American financial banking sector, which is concentrated in New York City, right? So, so this is where the work of the US Congress happens, is in committees. And typically these committees, they're not televised. These committee meetings, they are not covered on television, which is unfortunate. There's been lots of push to try to have television cameras in these committee meetings because everybody knows this is where most of the work is done. If you watch C-SPAN, the American cable network that covers the Congress, they have television proceedings of congressional work, but it's in the full chamber of the Senate or the House of Representatives where they have those coverage. They don't have television coverage of the committee meetings. Of course, some people want that made public because that's where the lobbying happens, right? So the big agricultural companies that are very much concerned about US agricultural policy, they're going to lobby and pressure those Congress people on the Agricultural Committee, and they're going to really have their input in the policymaking process in those conference meetings. So just on here. So they try to come up with a joint resolution, the Senate and the House, in terms of compromising and reconciling their different proposals regarding the budget resolutions. Remember, there's 435 people in the House and 100 members in the Senate. And step 4 is, in order to make the process of creating a budget more manageable, the House and Senate break down the budget into 12 pieces. So the budget is broken down to 12 pieces and give each piece to an appropriations subcommittee. So there's the appropriations committee and there's a subcommittee on each committee. And appropriation means money set aside for a specific purpose. Each subcommittee handles specific program funding in certain areas. They assign all the money they are responsible for in the documents called appropriations bills. After the appropriations subcommittees have created appropriations bills, the subcommittees from the House meet with their corresponding subcommittee from the Senate. They hammer out their differences through compromise and working together. And then step 6, the House and the Senate must approve the appropriations bills developed by the joint subcommittees. Once that is done, it's on to the president. He or she must choose whether to sign the budget into law or to veto the budget. All of this must happen by October 1st. Okay, so let's divide you into groups and do this exercise. And let me go to breakout rooms. And so we have 2 groups. And assign you like this. And so please join the groups. Anais, Cyril, and Cho Woo-Chin, please join room 1. And Chung Do-jin, Micah, and Kim Pyong-koo join room 2. And so please join those groups. And you're already in the groups, good. And we will now, I will ask, how should we do this? I guess we should have you let's divide up responsibilities. So group 1 will do step 1 and 2 and 3, and group 2 will do step 4, 5, and 6. So who's going to speak for each group? Let me flip a coin, and if it's heads, I'm sorry, if it's tails, it's the first person in each group. So tails is the first person in each group, and it is tails. So that means that Anais will speak for room 1 and Chung Do-jin will speak for room 2. And so Anais, Cyril help Anais, and Micah and Kim Pyong-koo help Chung Do-jin. You, Anais and Cyril will do steps 1, 2, and 3. And Chung Do-jin, Micah, and Kim Pyong-koo will do steps 4, 5, and 6. And you have a couple minutes to go through that sheet and complete it. Here it is again. So please fill in the blanks. Okay. And so you have 60 seconds. Okay. I think time's up. All right. So let's then go back to the exercise. And Anais, a budget is what? A budget is a plan for receiving and spending money. And what is the federal budget? Okay. And then a budget is created by the blank and the blank working together. Yes, the president and the Congress are supposed to work together, which is obviously easier if they're both from the same party, if the leaderships of the House and the leadership of the Senate and the president belong to the same party as they do now. But of course, in November, we will have a new election for Congress. And if the Republicans take control of the Senate or the House or both, the ability of the US president and the US Congress to agree on a budget is going to be much, much less likely. And that causes problems. And again, everybody's focused on what do they have to do they think they have to do to win the primary election and the general election that they both undergoing right now. The primary election for the Republican nominees for the Congress and the Democratic nominees for the Congress are happening in Ohio in 3 weeks' time, May 3rd, I believe. I just sent in my ballot. So these Congress people are always thinking about what do they need to do to make sure they win the primary election and then the general election in November of this year. So a budget is created by the president and the Congress working together. It takes over how many blank to complete the budget? It takes more than a year. Yes, yay, yay. The president has helped creating the budget and proposal from the office of, what's the name of the office? The OMB? One of those acronyms, you know, that US government people always use, the DOJ and the DOD and the OMB. What does OMB stand for? Office of, can you help her? Who else? Kirill, can you help her? The office of. Sounds like it's a boring group, but it's very important. The Office of Management and Budget. Right? The Office of Management and Budget. I mean, it might be, well, I don't want to say the most important, but it's certainly the most important organization or agency for preparing the budget for the US government, which is, again, almost $6,000 billion. The president's budget proposal is due on the, what's the date? Yay, is it October 1st? I think it is October 1st. Say October 1st. Yeah, I think October. No, it's due February 1st. Sorry, it's due February 1st. Each year in the first Monday in February, not the February 1st, the president must deliver his budget proposal for taxing and spending to Congress for the upcoming year. And that must be approved by all this must happen by October 1st. And if it doesn't, which sometimes it doesn't, it's all about spectacle, showing your intense supporters, if you're a Republican or a Democratic member of the House of Representatives or a senator, that you're fighting for your constituents and fighting the enemies that you think are a danger to America's well-being and interests, or at least the interests that you see or understanding to be. They might be unable to agree on a budget, in which case they will pass a continuing budget resolution to say, well, let's just go with the budget from last year and continue it for this year. And they've done that repeatedly until the last few years. There's been more of an effort to come up with a agreement, even when the Republicans are in power, because I'm not completely certain why. I think it's because there's a concern that the perceived inability of the Congress and the president even to agree on a budget is what is causing more and more Americans to seek unusual politicians as leaders like Donald Trump. Like, this place is so messed up. This is so dysfunctional. We need radical solutions. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I mean, they don't come out and say that, but this happened under the Obama presidency, that they couldn't agree on a budget. When the Republicans took control of the Congress in 2010 elections, they often were unable to reach agreement on a budget. And so they would have to pass a continuing budget resolution from the previous year because they couldn't go through this process and complete it. And this, I remember hearing this anecdotally among people, that many Americans reacted badly to that. Like, we need somebody who's not a professional politician. We need Donald Trump. And then after Donald Trump came into office, there was more of an effort to come up with a common budget, spending more money on defense and more money on domestic programs, making the budget deficit bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the pandemic happened. And the budget deficit, the difference between the income from taxes and the expenditures, that's money that's spent, I think one point was $1,000 billion 1 year during the pandemic. So $1 trillion. I think it's less now, but it's still hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollar budget deficit. And this is causing some people some great concern. So Kirill, the U.S. House Representatives and Senate based their budget plans on the following things. Kirill, what are they? Kirill? Where are you, Kirill? Kirill. Is Kirill here? Where are you, Kirill? Kirill, you're muted. We can't hear you, Kirill. If you want to speak, you have to unmute. He says connection is poor on his side. Oh, well. So, Anais, you're stuck. Anais, what is the answer? The House of Representatives and Senate based their budget plans on the following things. This here, right? The president's proposal, the previous year's budget, and new program requests. And this notion of bureaucratic inertia is really important, right? I mean, you can imagine with $6 trillion budget that basically it involves 90% of it just basically copy pasting the previous budget anyway to the new year's budget, to the next year's budget. These budget plans made in Congress are called, what are they called? Resolutions! Yay, resolutions! Okay. Chung Do-jin, the House and, oh no, we're still in step 3 here. The House and Senate come together in a, what is it, Anais? Conference committee, yay, conference committee. And in a conference committee, they develop a, yay, all right. Okay, group 2, Chung Do-jin. In order to make the process of budgeting more manageable, the House and Senate break down the budget into what, Chung Do-jin?
Yes, it's 12 pieces.
Yay! 12 pieces. All right. And And blank is money set aside for a specific purpose. What is a and blank?
Oh, it might be the appropriation.
Yay, appropriation, hooray, appropriation. And then after the appropriation subcommittees have created bills, the subcommittees from the House meet with the subcommittees from the blank. What is it, Chung Do-jin?
Yes, it is Senate.
Yay! When the subcommittees are finished meeting together, they each return to the House and Senate and present their blank.
Oh, it might be their subcommittees.
Their appropriations bills, right?
Oh,
Appropriations bills. And appropriations bills, yeah, here it is. Appropriations bills then go to the president where he will blank or blank them.
oh, he will sign or veto them.
Yes, sign or veto. Hooray, sign or veto. Okay, so next task here. And make sure that I don't shut down the whole thing by accident in chatting. And then we go to down here, floor, open. So please open up this file and go to, let me open up the file, and then we go to 3 and 4. Oh, that's nice. You don't have to rotate it. Okay, so I don't know, this might take too much time, but you can see here the federal budget process. You can see they want you to make a little diagram of this process by which the 6 steps are highlighted. And so since we're all individually stationed, it's kind of hard to do that together. Typically, that's what I would do. I would ask the students to get into groups and fill out this form, and and show it to us. But since we can't do that here right now, so let's just go next to this next stage here. And so, who will have? Let's break up the groups into 3 different groups and. Recreate. No, that's not what I want to do. Let's go like this. And I guess, I don't know, since I can't really read what this is, we'll put this person in room 3. And we'll put this person, the coin, who will be in room 3 as well. And so heads, it's group 1. Is tails, so somebody from group 2. Heads, it's Chung Do-jin will be in room 3, and it's tails. Heads, it's Micah will be in room 3, and it's Micah, so we'll move Micah to room 3, and like that, and then we will flip a coin. So please join those 3 different groups. Please join the groups, or that closed them, didn't I? Didn't mean to do that. Okay, so sorry, since it's in Korean language, I get a little confused. So Micah, Chung Do-jin, Anais, I think Chung Do-jin already spoke, Anais already spoke. So Kirill, do you feel like you can speak for room 1? And let's see, flip a coin for Micah or Cho Jin. Micah's heads, and it is tails. So Cho Jin will speak for room 3. And doing this exercise here, I already had opened. So we'll have group 1 do this exercise, group 2 do this exercise, and group 3 do this exercise. Okay, so Kirill and Anais will do room 1. Who is in the other group? I gotta remember here. We will have Kim Pyong-koo will speak for room 2, and Cho Woo-jin will speak for room 3. Okay, so here, and go here, So you can join those groups. Anis, Kirill, Chung Doo-jin, Kim Byung-koo, Micah, and Cho Woo-jin in room 3. Okay. And now we'll close the groups. So help Kim Byung-koo for room 2, Kirill for room 1, and Cho Woo-jin for room 3. Speak for those 3 groups. Kirill, you're on base, you're on deck. Kim Byung-koo, you're next, and Cho Woo-jin, you'll speak.
Sorry, sir, but I don't know why I'm back in the main room.
You're listed in room 1 here.
Yeah, but what I mean by that is that I did not even have the time to discuss anything with the other people in the breakout room.
Okay, well, see if you can wing it, because it's still using the same information we covered in the previous reading, right? That 1-page outline, and it's help kiddo.
Well, the one that we're supposed to answer to is creating the budget, right?
For this exercise here, yeah. So the House and Senate break into 12 appropriations committees, each with its own category of spending to cover. So is that step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? And you can look at the previous handout.
Okay.
Step 4, right? Step 4 here. I see it right there, right? Step 4. So it's fourth step in the process. And I'm sorry, we're kind of rushing this because time is passing pretty quickly here. So not that one. We'll go to the other one here. Not that one. This one. Okay. So it's step 4, and then the House and Senate work independently to create budget resolutions. This is step 4. What's this one?
Step 2.
Yeah, step 2. All right. After the House and Senate each approve the final budget, it is sent to the desk of the blank of the president to be vetoed or signed into law. That is step.
Step 5.
No, step 6. See, step 6.
Okay.
It's the last step. Okay. The president must approve makes a proposal with the help of the Office of Management and Budget. This must happen by the first Monday in February. Step 1, is that step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6?
I would need to see all of the steps to tell you that.
All of the steps, the steps here. There's your hint.
So that's the first one.
Yeah, right, the first one. All right. Select members of the House and Senate get together in the Conference Committee to work out the differences in their resolutions. There's not too many.
That's also step 2 or step 3?
Step 3.
3, yeah.
All right, step 3. And F, the House and Senate Appropriations Committee subcommittees meet together to discuss their appropriations bills and make compromises. I think you might have been right. It might have been step 2. Oh, yeah. So they come together in a joint resolution. So you're right. I was wrong. You were right. Step 2 and then step 3. All right. So you can see that this is the process of making the U.S. government budget, and this is very political. And again, keep in mind in those primary elections, who votes in the Democratic and Republican primary elections in Ohio in 3 weeks' time? No more than 20% of eligible voters will vote. So 80% of people who can vote won't because they don't care, or they don't care very much. So who does vote? The militants, the people that are intensely focused on politics, and they tend to be more militant. They tend to be more extreme in their views. If they're American exceptionalists that view America as a country founded upon individual freedom and with great skepticism and suspicion regarding the role of the government, they will tend to predominate in the primaries for the Republican Party. So you're seeing Republican candidates running for Ohio Senate and Ohio Congress that are militantly talking like Trump, because it's Trump supporters, people that are enthusiastic about Trump, that are more likely to come out and vote in 3 weeks' time in Ohio. Even though I know these people are professional, moderate type politicians, but again, they're doing what they think they need to do to win elections. Okay, group 2, put a star next to the step that you think might be the hardest for Congress to complete. So among these 6 steps, room 2, which is the most difficult to complete, do you think? And then Kim Pyong-ku.
I think step 4 will be the hardest.
Step 4, let's see. The president makes a proposal. Step 4. So let's go back to step 4. And step 4 is, in order to make the process of creating a budget more manageable, the House and Senate break down the budget into 12 pieces, and you give each piece to an appropriations committee. Appropriations means money set aside for a specific purpose. Each subcommittee handles a specific program. You said step 4, they assign all the money.
Yeah.
The document's called appropriations bills. I'm trying to recall from history, recent history, what has been the most difficult.
Mm-hmm.
That might well be it. I'm trying to, oh, well, what does happen is that this happened under Donald Trump. Donald Trump refused to accept this process. So in step 6, when he was president, he refused to sign the budget because there wasn't money for his border wall. He wanted to build a big, big wall along the border of Mexico. And the Congress refused to spend big money on building this huge 1,000 kilometer long wall that he wanted built along the border of Mexico to try to keep out illegal immigrants from coming into the United States. And so he vetoed the budget, and there was no budget, and the Congress and the president couldn't agree, and as a result, the government shut down because there was no money officially approved by the government to spend on these programs. So the US government, many of the programs, not all of them, like the Defense Department did not shut, but all the other programs and the people that work for them and all the employees who were paid, they were told to go home. And for this was in 3 or 4 years ago. The US government shut down for about a month, until there was some compromise reached by which under political pressure and intense hostility and argument and fighting on the media, all the suffering this was causing, all the trouble, difficulties, dangers this was causing, to pass a compromise that typically was in the form of a continuing budget resolution plus some additional compromises elsewhere that the Republicans and the Democrats could both say that they claimed that they could both won. So that was a more frequent occurrence before the pandemic. But since the pandemic, that has not happened. It's not going to happen under Biden. But that happened twice in the last 10 years, as I can recall. When Barack Obama was president, no. Okay, I have to go back and check, but it did happen in Donald Trump's presidency. Okay, and okay, back to this here. So we go here. Okay, so back to the group 3. Okay, so you write a letter to your congressman. Mr. Congressman, Fill in the blanks in the letter below using the words in the word blank, in the word bank here. So, what month, February, October, would you put here? Room 3. So who's room 3? Room 3 is Cho, Jean, and Micah. So Cho, Jean, what do you put in this letter to your congressman to try to pressure your congressman to do what you want him to do? So this is February or October goes here. Cho, Jean.
February.
Yes, February. So this is the congressman is sending a response letter to this constituent. So of course this is made all very much easier with the internet. You can send emails and Facebook messages to your congressman, and they will respond with an email. I can show you on my account. Maybe I can show you. Let me show you what my congressman sends me. Show you this without shutting down by accident. And I'm hesitant to do this. Jesus. Everything's gotta be complicated. I think I'm signed in. So my congressman is Bob Gibbs, who's not running for re-election, by the way, because reply, I think you can see that. Reply from Congressman Bob Gibbs. So this is for my area of Ohio. And so, dear Professor Diedemann, I can't remember what I contacted. It was 2021, so this is a year ago. Thank you for contacting my office regarding the President Biden's so-called infrastructure proposal. He's a Republican, and our nation's infrastructure needs improvement. And as your representative in Congress, I appreciate your input on this issue. And of course, he's attacking Joe Biden, the Democrat. It does little to invest in our nation's infrastructure. In fact, less than 6% of the $2.3 trillion plan would go toward improving highways. And he goes on here, Bob Gibbs is fighting for American workers, but not for socialism. This Biden's proposal is socialism. Oh, not socialism. Oh my gosh. Of course, but he just announced 2 or 3 weeks ago he's not running for re-election because he doesn't want to deal with the politics of this anymore. It's too much conflict. So he's not running for re-election. So you see Bob Gibbs, member of Congress, and they all have websites. So of course, this has become a lot easier with the internet. So easy to send off letters and get responses. And of course, there are lots of people who work in his office. I doubt very much that Bob Gibbs wrote this. and I don't think he sent it to me. One of his people in his office, his offices sent it to me. But of course, he wants to be 90 to 95% of Congress people who want to run for re-election win re-election. And responding to constituents, including email contacts, is part of that effort to make sure that your constituents are happy with you. And even if, as somebody pointed out in their paper, public opinion surveys show Americans say they don't like the behavior of the Congress, still 90 to 95% of congressmen get reelected if they're running for reelection. Socialism. Oh, not socialism. No. And okay, so let me go back to the exercise here. Share screen. We go to this. Okay, here we go. Thank you for your questions regarding the what goes here. Joe, who's in that group again? Cho Jean. What goes here, Cho Jean? Thank you for your questions regarding the blank. Federal budget or budget? What goes here?
Federal budget.
Yes, it looks very similar to your budget at home. And that's, of course, the congressman speaking as a politician. you have a budget in your household at home, and of course, you have to be careful and not waste money, and you don't want to go into debt to pay for your expenses. And you, but of course, the Republicans are the ones that, for the longest time, have been complaining about excessive debt. As I told you, at one point during the pandemic, the U.S. government was spending $1 trillion more than it was receiving in the form of taxes, money that it has to borrow, and that it has to pay back, and it has to pay interest to the investors who bought the government bonds to gain those loans from those investors. And that interest is increasing. And if the budget deficit continues to grow and grow and grow, a bigger portion, a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger portion of the US government budget will be paying just the interest on that debt. And so this is a concern, but of course during the pandemic, the view was like fighting World War II. You have to spend the money. The US government spent lots of debt, acquired huge debt in fighting World War II, in building the US military, and now we're back to that level that we had during World War II in terms of the size of the total government public budget deficit is about the same as the size of the US economy. And that budget debt has interest that has to be paid, as well as the debt itself. And so the percentage of the US budget that is being spent on servicing the budget is increasing and increasing and increasing. And now we have this war in Ukraine. And that means the US defense budget is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but people don't want to pay more taxes. Do you want to pay more taxes? Do I want to pay more taxes? I paid big taxes last year. Big taxes for last year. This 2 months ago. Because I invest my money in retirement investments when I retire. And the stock market did really well. And so my investments in my retirement stocks did really well. And I paid huge amounts of the most taxes I've ever paid. I won't tell you how much. But Donald Trump, he paid $750 in taxes. I paid many times that because that's the way the tax structure has been created by the Congress due to lobbying and so on. But of course, the claim is, we're comparing the federal budget. The federal budget should be run like your family budget. The president just submitted his proposal, which means Congress is working to develop House and Senate. What goes here, Cho Jin?
I think resolution.
Yes. He will then begin work on a blank. We will then begin work on a blank. What goes here?
Conference committee.
Yeah, I think that goes here in a conference committee. We will work on a joint resolution by working on a conference committee. The next step is to divide into how many subcommittees? There's a number that goes here.
12.
12 subcommittees to create what? Appropriations bills, right? So the resolutions happen first, and you create appropriations bills to fill out the details of the resolutions. After the appropriations bills are presented to Congress, each house votes. All this must get done by what month?
Joint resolution.
What month? There's a month that goes here. So you put February up here. What goes here?
October.
Yes. When the president will choose to blank or sign the budget into law.
Veto.
Veto. Yay, veto. Yay, veto. Okay. So, I'm going to have to shut down this computer so that I can convert the recording. And while we shut down for a minute, I will open up my laptop and go to the laptop. And so let me shut this down right now, and I'll open up my laptop. Okay, so I'll be offline for 60 seconds.